something in these hills. Something haunted.
Hey everyone, Rascal here.
And Mama. Welcome to our channel, Paws On Animation.
In today's podcast, we are finally covering the latest Hellboy movie, Hellboy the Crooked Man.
And hopefully the last Hellboy movie.
Good grief.
Now this film adapts one of Hellboy's most famous and popular storylines from the original comics, The Crooked Man, which, by the way, if you haven't read it, is an excellent story.
Yes.
This movie, however, this time, it promises to be more faithful to the story, while also serving as a reboot to the movie franchise. However, we have no idea what we watched. But
before we start, be sure to like, subscribe, click notifications for future podcasts and we'll pause videos.
And thank you for subscribing to our channel, sharing our videos, commenting, and so much more. As always, we appreciate everything you do. So why did we decide to cover this on the 31st? Because it's a scary movie, and not in a good way.
Right. And it was promised to be more of a horror type movie rather than an action or a superhero, to be more in line with the comics feel.
And I think what's interesting is that all the things the trailer promised, and the directors and producers and the writers and whomever promised, none of it was delivered.
No.
Absolutely none of it. And we're not saying this to be mean. As you know, Rascal is a huge Hellboy fan. And I love Hellboy too, but not as much as she loves Hellboy. And for someone who loves this character this much to not like this movie, you know it's got to be bad. Right. And we'll tell you more reasons why as we continue.
Yes. And we know there are going to be some people that liked it. And we did see it. And there were some that enjoyed it thoroughly and thought it was worth the wait and praised it and kept trying to promote the movie themselves, saying you gotta go see it, you gotta go see it, you gotta go watch it on demand stuff. And then there were others that were a bit more confused and actually couldn't stand the movie. They were very disappointed, but we're told that they just didn't give it a chance. So we want to say that we did give it a chance the second it was available on Hulu, and we're giving our opinion of it. So get bent!
Yeah. So what it did right. We always like to start with that. It released in October, which was perfect. Unlike some movies that are like this, they come out in the summer or for New Year's, and it's like, what the heck are you thinking?
Right.
They did the right thing in releasing it in October. That was a good idea.
Yes.
Also, the cinematography was good.
Yeah. They had something really different. It looked different and it felt different. And then I think that's it.
Well, it was created by Mike McNulty. The original idea.
The original story, yes.
The original story by Mike McNulty. And the original story, The Crooked Man, is excellent.
Yes.
And that's all the good we've got to say.
That is it.
Nothing in here worked. But for those of you not familiar with Hellboy, The Crooked Man, and you should stay unfamiliar, it was released in 2024, October 8th, and is based on, as we mentioned, the Dark Horse comic Hellboy, created by Mike McNulty. It was produced by Millennium Media, Dark Horse Entertainment, New Bayana Film Studios, and Campbell Grobman Films. And I think that was another problem. Too many producers.
Yeah.
And it's the second reboot, which is another problem.
Yes.
And it's the fourth live action entry, and that's another problem.
Yeah.
It was directed by Brian Taylor from a script he wrote with McNulty and Christopher Golden. That doesn't make it good just because McNulty was involved.
Right.
Unfortunately, this just didn't work.
No, it did not, unfortunately.
The filming began in Bulgaria, and that's where it was filmed, and you can definitely tell it's in a different place.
Yes.
It has a runtime of 99 minutes. It had a budget of $20 million, and it earned a whopping $2 million.
Oh my gosh.
222 TWO at the box office. And rightly so.
And as this trend is going, people were to blame for not going and giving this movie a chance and letting it fail. No, the people said, we don't want this movie, we don't like this movie, so they therefore did not go to see the movie. The money spoke. So, with that, we ended up seeing it on Hulu when it was available back in March. Odd place to put it in, but hey, we took advantage of it and watched it immediately. And we went it with open minds to say, you know what, let's block out all what we saw online and reviews, whether they loved it or they hated it. Let's just see for ourselves how the movie is without someone else telling us.
Yes.
And
we wanted to be fair because we read the story. And again, I know I keep saying it.
Right.
This is one of my favorite Hellboy stories. And I was so excited when they said they were going to adapt it. And then we started seeing ads and my excitement began to abate.
Yes. And the movie immediately starts, not how the book starts, but Hellboy and 2 other BPRD agents on a mission. And no, they do not have Abe or Liz in here. In fact, they made sure they didn't have to have them in there because these characters are not featured in the original story. Instead, they added 2 new characters, and one of them was killed off by a giant spider monster. And they end up having, alongside Hellboy this time, who was by himself, really. Now he's accompanied by a female agent named Bobby Song? I think. Was that her name? Was that the actress name? I think.
Yeah, Bobby Joe Song.
Yeah, like Jackie Lynn Thomas.
Yeah.
And already people were questioning, why is this woman in here?
Wasn't in the book and wasn't needed.
No. And the answer is to be the love interest of Hellboy. Yes, we're serious. And to be the researcher for witchcraft and occult items.
And to just literally take over the film.
And to be the female, yeah?
And that keeps happening over and over and over. I don't know who in Hollywood, and if this offends you, I'm really sorry, guys, thinks that every freaking movie that comes out has to have a female lead, be female dominated, and be nothing about a female, even when a female isn't the focus of the story. We've read this again. It was Hellboy and a preacher who's just ridiculed to death in here. It should never happen. And the story is strong and powerful. And there are women in the story.
Yes,
they are in there and they have pertinent roles in the story.
Yes.
But in here, they were also ridiculed and toned down so they could make way for Bobby Joe. We didn't want Bobby Joe. We wanted the freaking story as it was in the book. And they didn't give us that. And this is what ruined the experience. This movie was a piece of crap. And I'm so sorry to say that because it's Mike Mignola, but it stinks.
It's still bad. And
to make a woman the lead, and then Hellboy is just emasculated.
He's smoking
in
like
here. He does nothing. She
Not
does
till the
everything.
end.
He gets beaten the crap out of.
Half the time.
He can't figure things out for himself.
For some reason.
And it's like, who the heck is this character? This isn't Hellboy.
And there's an astronomical more amount of things wrong with this movie, but we can't go through them all because it'll be as long as the film, which was close to 2 hours. And one problem with Hellboy...
It was 99 minutes of terror.
Oh, gosh. And the main problem for Hellboy is that I know people were really excited for Jack Kinsey to take the role himself and be the new Hellboy. And I'm sure he's a good actor outside of this movie. I'm not too familiar with him outside of one Deadpool movie. But in here, Hellboy was written differently. And there was this thing where he constantly was smoking a cigar. Yes, Hellboy smoked. But this guy was smoking so dang much. I don't know how he was talking or saying any lines in this movie. He was constantly breathing tobacco the entire film up until they had a fight in the churchyard or in the house. And it was a little distracting because it's like, well, he didn't smoke this badly in the book. He did it sometimes, but he wasn't just smoking like a fireplace.
And he would hold the cigar in his mouth at times too.
Yeah, he was just constantly huffing.
Like it was like Columbo.
Yeah. And Greg Columbo,
to soothe him or help him to focus.
Yeah.
But in here, he's like you said, he's a chain-smoking, nervous wreck. And it's like, who is this character?
Right. And his personality is completely different. Some might say, well, he was always this stoic in the book. He wasn't to the point where you question, he was unlikable. He had no personality. They forced in his backstory for the 10th time, and it wasn't even necessary because it was never brought up in the book. But they forced in the thing about him coming to terms with his mom being a witch and being with a demon, and he's got to confront that, and he's having nightmares and swearing and things. It's like, why is this in the movie?
Exactly.
Why? This has nothing to do with you.
I will say again, Jack Casey. We're not familiar with him. He can only perform the script he was given to write. I mean, that was written for him.
Yeah, sorry.
But here's the problem. He's not Hellboy. No one but Ron Perlman is. And we're not saying that because we're narrow-minded. He was too short for one thing.
I couldn't even
sorry.
tell at
He
first.
was too short. The clothes were too big. He just did not give off a Hellboy presence. His voice also didn't work. His line delivery didn't work. How they told him to portray the character didn't work.
Just punch.
And this is no offense to Jack Casey. We're going to say it again for the third time.
Right.
It is the fault of the directors, the producers, the writers, and everyone involved who set this garbage up. It's not the fault of the performers.
Right.
They can only perform what they're given.
Right.
So this is the fault of all the people behind the scenes.
Right. And then, as the story plans out, people were praising and pretty much hyping up certain scenes that were going one-to-one panels or lines with the book. And in some instances, yes, they did. But all those scenes you saw in the trailer were the only scenes that they kept from the book. They also changed the story and outcome of the end and the message. The message of the book, whether people agree with it or not, was about redemption. Because you had this man who turned away from God because he was a naive kid who was doing things he really shouldn't and paid for it later and felt guilty. And he came back years later to rectify what he did.
So
and
Tom Farrell.
Yeah. And he wanted to rectify what he did and ask forgiveness, seek forgiveness. And the preacher told him, you've been forgiven. The Lord knows your heart's been heavy for years, because he truly did feel bad. And the whole message that he fought off the evil. All these characters fought off the evil from an entity that was dead set on dragging everybody to heck with him and just saying, well, you might as well give up. You can't outrun the deal and all that. And it was about overcoming that. This movie's message is, Tom's screwed. He did that deal as a kid. Well, he's a witch for life. He's screwed. Yeah, you can't help it. He can't change the past. It's forever etched in his life. He doesn't get forgiven because he can't. And the preacher is no help.
The Reverend Nathaniel
Reverend
Armstrong Watts is a totally different character
Reverend.
from the book. Totally different character. Not even any resemblance, except for both of their skins were brown. And that's the only thing that's the same.
Yeah.
They totally ruined the character. In the book, he holds up well against Hellboy in terms of having a strong personality and being a well-written character.
Yeah.
Also, as you said, wanting to help him to resolve what's going on with him.
Yes.
And even when
fighting.
he was tempted, when the Cricket Man sent him a woman who he was in love with.
Right.
Of course, made her look like she did when she was alive, but he opened a casket and it was better in the book. And he had this young, beautiful woman come out that he would want. And he stood up to him and said, no, I know this is real. Not real. I don't want this. I've made my choices in my life. The writing was so good in that book.
Yeah.
And in here, he screams, he whines, he cries, he's blind.
Well, yeah, of course. That's the thing they got right. He was blind too. That was it.
But he doesn't act like the character in the book. You didn't know he was blind until they told you.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a character flaw in the book, but it is here. And he is a wuss in here. And he doesn't know God in here because he can't do a dang thing.
Right. They act like they're doing scenes where
and he's not a priest. He's not a priest.
Nope. And what's even worse is that they did the scene where they have the holy shovel, and yes, it's a little bit of humor in there, and they kept two things from the book that were humorous. Yeah. And then, sorry if there's a spoiler, he dies.
But he doesn't die in the book.
No, he dies. Crows is like the punishment, I guess, for one of the things in the Bible. Poke his eyes out, and he's eaten alive by crows, and the woman survives because he's trying to protect her. And it was like a slap in the face to the character and to the story. The man just got axed. All the people that were fighting, except for the Hellboy and the woman, were taken out, and the man wasn't gonna get forgiven because they told him he's screwed. He's just gonna have to go to hell now, and literally. And it was just a really disturbing thing. And we know people are probably gonna say this is how they feel, but this is not what the book is.
Exactly. This wasn't the story. This movie was an affront to the characters in the book. The original writing by Mike Mignola. Maybe he did it because Hollywood paid him. That's
possibly.
All we can think. But this is not the book. And it was so disappointing that this wasn't the book. We really had high hopes. We really wanted to love this movie. We really hoped that we were
Yes,
going to.
we were so
Even
excited.
with the change in the performer for Hellboy, but it just doesn't work. Nothing about this movie works, and I think that's the most disappointing thing. It is for us a total 0. It doesn't even get a 1.
No, it's this bad.
And
it's
the
an
majority
insult.
of critics, including Rotten Tomatoes, who's still rotten,
Yeah.
don't like the movie. They got a 4.7 out of 10. And some give it a 2 out of 5 stars. Some describe it as a YouTube fan film. That's what.
Oh, that's an insult too.
And I think what they were really going for was shock value.
Yeah, because there was a lot
And
of
that
jump
was
scares.
the problem, because in the story itself in the book, it was more about storytelling, as you said, redemption, strongly well-written characters, people having a virtue, Hellboy wanting to protect humanity. There was so many, and people who were lost because they're already dead and gone, they can't be saved, and then those who aren't, who still have a chance at living life. That's what the original story was about.
Yeah.
But this movie was
They just
a
twisted
whole
it.
different thing.
The entire thing has been twisted to say another message, and even down to the fights, which you couldn't see well because it was dark, and they've been doing that a lot. Everything in this movie is twisted around, and it's not like the book. This is why it made only $2 million. You had people that went to see it out of curiosity, and some that came out liking all the change and thought it was even better than the book. And to that, glad you found some enjoyment out of it.
$2 million in money they got.
Right. So that's what it earned, because that's what it was worth.
But
unfortunately,
it should be a message to these people that $18 million worth of people didn't want to see this movie.
Yes. And yes, that should tell you a whole lot. Nothing to do with advertisement, because people did want to go see it and did advertise and had a fan base. It was disappointing, and they refused to even acknowledge the film.
So quickly, the cast: Jack Kesey as Hellboy, Martin Bassingdale as Jeremiah Wickens of the Crooked Man, Jefferson White as Tom Farrell, Adeline Rudolph as Bobby Joe Song, Joseph Marcel as Reverend Nathaniel, just say the Reverend, Leah McNamara as Effie Cole, and Hannah Morgenstern as Cora Fisher. And that's another thing. The story didn't have many characters. The movie had more than the story because they added 2 new characters.
Right.
But if they had done the movie right, there would have been 2 fewer actors and stuck to the book itself. It would have been a much better story. It would have been more entertaining and more well received. But they chose to go in a different direction. And unfortunately, they paid the price.
Yes.
So if you've seen Hellboy, the Crooked Man, and we hope you haven't, let us know in the comments. Did you love it? And if so, tell us why. If you didn't, welcome to the club. How do you think it compares to the book? Or the story, I should say. Let us know in the comments. If you haven't seen it, we say give it a hard freaking pass.
Yeah.
Unless you just like seeing terrible movies, then this is for you. But if you want to see something remotely similar to the Crooked Man, this isn't it. If you want to see anything remotely as great as the performances of Ron Perlman in the other movies, it isn't. And this is how bad this movie is. Nothing against David Harbour, but David Harbour did a better job at performing this role than Mr. Casey.
And you didn't come out of the movie with a headache because it was so bad. You were just disappointed.
So, with that,
if you haven't already, subscribe for updates so we can visit anime series, anime shows, and all things animation.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for joining us, subscribing, sharing our videos, commenting. As always,
you are special. Thank you so much for watching, Rascal Entertainment
and Mom Entertainment.
Have a fantastic day.
Peace.
And reporters sitting, flashing lights, trying to walk around, man. Who the hell are you? What you wanna do? Well, man, it's on you. Man, it's on you. With her in my dreams, she was my queen. A castle in the mountaintops, rivers and streams. Plucking sunlight from the sky in my pocket, giving